A crime syndicate boss was brazenly extorted for 10 billion won by senior government officials, who even arrested his family members on fabricated charges and threatened to detain them unless he paid the ransom. To raise money for their release, the gangster came up with the fastest way to make cash, holding a wedding to collect wedding gifts and cash presents. Hae Gang ostensibly ran a trading firm, but in truth, he operated a massive underground casino. All patrons entering the venue underwent strict background checks and were required to sign up for tiered memberships. Supporting services were fully available. Guests could withdraw funds, take out loans on the spot to keep gambling without interruption. To prevent unpaid debts, a professional debt collection team stood on standby. The unit dug up every detail about debtors, including their entire family history and hidden savings. They seized ancestral properties and insurance payouts alike, squeezing every last cent to ensure no bad debts were left unsettled. The casino flourished and expanded rapidly, and Hae Gang should have amassed wealth worth trillions of won. However, his business was illegal, forcing him to lavish bribes and favors on officials at every level. More than half of his revenue vanished maintaining these corrupt connections. Whenever schmoozing with bureaucrats was needed, the powerful, commanding gang leader turned into a servile yes-man. He accompanied senior officials on mountain hikes, while everyone else traveled light. He hauled bulky bags up the trail, gasping for breath. At the summit, he pulled out eel rice favored by Minister Sun of the National Police Agency, lying that he had cooked it himself, though his subordinates had lined up at a famous Gangnam restaurant at dawn to buy the premium dish. After waiting on them hand and foot, he quietly handed over dessert boxes that held stacks of cash instead of pastries. He thought his subservience and bribes would win their favor, yet Minister Sun, craving a cigarette lighter, hinted Hae Gang trek back down the mountain to buy one. Dreading the long downhill walk, Hae Gang dared not refuse. After finishing all his payoffs, Hae Gang believed his casino would operate smoothly under official protection for a long time. Unexpected trouble struck out of nowhere. Chief Guo of the National Police Agency hoped to join a powerful political circle backing the next presidential candidate, a group dubbed Ilsa Society. Its core members included the Chief Presidential Secretary, Prosecutor General, Supreme Court Justice, and a major daily newspaper publisher. The four wielded immense influence, capable of shifting political tides at will. Having clawed his way to police chief over 30 years, Guo thought his rank would grant him entry, only to face open ridicule. Every other member owned assets exceeding 10 billion won. Though Guo had accepted countless bribes over the years, his total fortune amounted to merely 2 billion won, making it nearly impossible for him to gather the required 10 billion. Upon hearing Guo's predicament, Minister Sun immediately thought of Hae Gang, his obedient personal cash machine. He openly demanded 10 billion won from the gang boss, claiming Hae Gang had profited massively under their protection. Hae Gang explained little profit remained after constant bribes, yet Sun refused to believe a word. To coerce compliance, Sun first shut down the casino. Next, he arrested 3 of Hae Gang's loyal subordinates on groundless charges including intentional assault, drunk driving, and secret voyeurism against women. He even detained Hae Gang's adoptive father, who only held a nominal position at the trading firm. Desperate to free his adoptive father and men, Hae Gang handed over all the money he had scraped together and knelt to beg Sun for their release. Cold-hearted Sun accepted the funds as partial ransom, agreeing to free the 3 underlings first. He gave Hae Gang 3 months to come up with the full 10 billion won to redeem his adoptive father. Overwhelmed with guilt toward his adoptive father, Hae Gang drifted back to decades-old memories. He had once been an excellent student, yet his gambling-addicted birth father sold him to a casino operator to fund his bets. He knelt crying in pouring rain, despairing at his cruel fate. Moved by the boy's suffering and impressed by his inner grit, the casino boss took him in as an adopted son, changing the course of his life forever. Their bond grew deeper than blood over the years. Hae Gang visited his adoptive father in prison filled with remorse, promising he would spare no effort to secure his release. The elderly man comforted him, saying his advanced age made freedom irrelevant, and urged Hae Gang to stop worrying about him. Unable to drag his 3 subordinates down with him, Hae Gang could not bear to subject them to hardship. Back at the office, he announced the company's dissolution and told the 3 men to go their separate ways. But all 3 had received financial support and favors from him over the years. No matter what, they insisted on staying by his side to weather the crisis together. Grateful for their unwavering loyalty, Hae Gang dropped polite refusals once he saw how determined they were, and the 4 began brainstorming ways to raise the money. They extorted gamblers and collected outstanding casino debts non-stop for days, yet only scraped together 2 billion won. At that point, the bespectacled subordinate grumbled that misfortunes never come singly. Someone had sent out an invitation to a birthday banquet. Those words sparked a sudden idea in Hae Gang. For years, he had shelled out countless cash gifts to both criminal associates and government officials without ever receiving a single payout in return. If hosting a banquet could generate quick cash, they would hold one purely to collect wedding gift money. After much discussion, the the four settled on a plan. Hae Gang, who carried the most clout, would stage a lavish wedding and invite guests from all walks of life. They had a groom, but no bride. The bride they chose was a complete stranger Hae Gang had never met before. Hari had been put through school by her elder sister. After graduation, she sat for the bar exam twice and failed both times. Unwilling to disappoint her sister's hopes, she lied that she had passed and landed a job at a law firm. To send her sister regular monthly allowances, she juggled multiple part-time jobs. One day, her best friend hooked her up with a side gig for a wedding. She thought she would work as a server, but upon arriving at the venue, she learned she was meant to pretend to be the bride. Downstairs, she caught sight of swarms of gang members and guessed the groom was no ordinary man. Fearing endless trouble, she tried to leave immediately. The two strangers, meeting for the first time for money, linked arms and walked into the wedding hall. Everything went smoothly per the schedule until the guests suddenly roared and egged them on to kiss. Unable to turn them down, Hae Gang mouthed to Hari that he would pay an extra 2 million won. Without hesitation, Hari pursed her lips. Once the wedding ended, Hari received the full 7 million won as promised. Hae Gang teased her that she had gotten off easy. When he leaned in, he pressed his thumb against her lips and only kissed his own finger instead of her. Hari retorted that even a fake kiss had ruined her mood. Dragged into such an enormous fraud left her disgusted and repulsed, and she hoped they would never cross paths again. After Hari left, Hae Gang and his men counted all the wedding gifts they had collected. Unfortunately, they were still short 6.5 billion won of the required 10 billion. With no other viable ways to earn money, only one gambler still owed them unpaid debts. UG. Resolved to take whatever they could get, Hae Gang's group tracked UG down. They tied UG to the rooftop and threatened to take his life unless he repaid his debt. Terrified, UG screamed and begged for mercy. As he glanced across at rows of lit windows in the opposite apartment complex, every glowing light looked like an endless source of cash to him. He told Hae Gang he had a foolproof scheme to rake in massive profits, claiming Hae Gang would understand once he saw the bank passbook and notebook hidden inside his jacket. Hae Gang pulled out the two items and studied them closely. He discovered that when UG had served as a labor representative, he falsified property management fees and procurement costs, accepted bribes from bidding companies, and embezzled construction material fees, administrative charges and service fees, pocketing a total of 4 billion won. UG confessed his complex only held a little over 1,000 households, while the apartment complex across the street housed more than 9,000, far more room for illicit profit. Staring at the towering residential buildings, Hae Gang could almost see the full 10 billion won waiting for him. He resolved to seize this lucrative opportunity to gather the full ransom sum as fast as possible. A selfish property owner parked illegally, blocking every vehicle entrance and exit. The formidable gang leader hit the gas and rammed straight into the man's car, crushing it to pieces. Even more ruthless was the mild, harmless-looking bespectacled subordinate, who followed up by slashing the entire vehicle body with a sharp blade until it was mangled beyond recognition. The previous night, Hae Gang had grown eager about the money-making scheme UG told him and pressed for detailed ways to siphon funds through the residential complex management office. UG explained that he was a resident of the complex himself. After being elected a building representative, he could run for president of the Homeowners Association, gaining full control over all complex affairs and making embezzlement effortless. New to this line of work, Hae Gang remained skeptical, wondering if there really was a massive sum of money to be stolen. Sensing his doubt, UG told him to call the management office and ask about the total balance of the long-term maintenance fund paid by residents. Posing as a resident, Hae Gang dialed the office. Hae, Hari's elder sister, worked there. A new staff member reported that a resident was inquiring about the maintenance fund. Though hesitant, Hae let the employee share the relevant figures. Learning the maintenance fund held a staggering 17.8 billion won, Hae Gang made up his mind at once. He held a discussion with his three subordinates, planning to withdraw the full amount. After bailing out his adoptive father, he would use the leftover money to set up legitimate businesses for the three men so they could live stable, ordinary lives. With their plan finalized, Hae Gang asked UG to coach them on residential property management rules. UG explained that the long-term maintenance fund was collected incrementally in advance to cover long-term apartment repairs. Residents resisted large one-time payments, so each household only contributed 20,000 to 30,000 won monthly, yet the pooled sum grew enormous. The fund was jointly overseen by the Homeowners Association president and the complex manager. Hae Gang only had 3 months to raise the ransom and could not afford to spend years climbing the ranks. UG said the association president held an official seal. To withdraw funds, both the president and complex manager needed to stamp the paperwork. Once he secured the presidency, Hae Gang could either intimidate the manager the same way officials had threatened him, or bribe the manager to split the stolen money, clearing the path to take the fund. Their first priority was winning the position of building representative, then campaigning for association president within 3 months. Once he obtained the presidential seal, he could take the money and leave. Convinced this was the fastest way to gather the cash, Hae Gang resolved to act immediately. That night, when Hae Gang returned to the apartment complex, he saw a crowd gathered amid a fierce argument. After asking around, he learned a sports car owner had parked illegally in the middle of the road, blocking all access for other vehicles. Trapped residents condemned his reckless parking, but the man argued stubbornly and refused to apologize. Growing impatient and unwilling to waste time, Hae Gang slammed on the gas and crashed into the sports car, wrecking it completely. Onlookers cheered, saying the man had gotten what he deserved. The luxury car owner stormed over and demanded 300 million won in compensation. Hae Gang shot back boldly that he had no money to pay and would fully cooperate if the man filed a police report or lawsuit. Stunned by Hae Gang's unyielding stance, the sports car owner threw himself on the ground throwing a tantrum. Just then, a shrill scraping noise cut through the air. Everyone turned to see the mild-mannered bespectacled subordinate slashing the sports car's body with a sharp tool. The bespectacled man stepped forward, claiming sole responsibility for the damage and clearing Hae Gang of blame. He told the car owner he could demand 300 or 500 million won, but every grievance would be settled legally. The driver had wasted his off hours, inconvenienced all residents present, and disrupted the management staff. He would mobilize his firm's 12 lawyers, specialists at digging up criminal records, and ruin the man's life entirely within legal boundaries. Terrified by the threat, the sports car owner fled the scene in disgrace. The bespectacled man thanked Hae Gang for teaching the rude resident a lesson and offered to repair Hae Gang's car free of charge. At this moment, Hae Gang only took Yoon-won for an ordinary resident of the complex, completely unaware that he was a high-ranking political figure, the founder of Ilsa Society, the very mastermind who had pressured Chief Guo to come up with 10 billion won for membership and ultimately dragged Hae Gang into all this trouble. Early the next morning, Yoon-won found his car tires punctured. After checking the dashcam footage, he confirmed the sports car driver from the previous day was the culprit. To punish the man, Yoon-won used him as a makeshift golf target and toyed with him relentlessly. Only when the driver was reduced to a terrified, pathetic mess did Yoon-won issue a warning that the entire apartment complex belonged to him. Hae Gang still had no idea how ruthless Yoon-won truly was. Eager to get his hands on the 17.8 billion won maintenance fund as soon as possible, he brought his completed building representative application form to the complex management office, where Hae, Hari's elder sister, attended to him. When Hae saw the family information on the form, a look of surprise crossed her face. Most residents running for building representative came from 3 or 4 generation households, yet Hae Gang listed no family members and lived all alone. Realizing this was a critical flaw, Hae Gang snatched the form back at once. He knew if other residents learned he lived alone with no family, they would doubt his ability to mediate neighborhood disputes, and his campaign would be doomed from the start. To boost his chances of winning the election, Hae Gang resolved to fabricate an image of a settled man with both elderly parents and young children to care for. Just then, hotel staff delivered the wedding photos taken on his fake wedding day. At the sight of money-driven Hari in the pictures, Hae Gang settled on her as his pretend wife without hesitation. He soon tracked Hari down at the law firm where she worked. Without a formal bar license, she could only offer free legal consultations there. Right then, she was dealing with a shameless man who had sexually harassed a woman on a bus yet refused to admit his guilt. Enraged, Hari scolded him for brazenly denying clear-cut evidence, driving him away. Her fiery temper had offended the client, and she was fired by her boss shortly afterward. Seizing the opportunity, Hae Gang proposed that Hari act as his wife for 3 months. Hari saw Hae Gang as dangerous and wanted nothing more to do with him, yet she could not resist the lure of a 30 million won deposit, money she desperately needed. Meanwhile, Hae, who worked at the management office, had tendered her resignation to the Homeowners Association president and complex manager multiple times, promising to keep everything she knew confidential. Still, the two men kept making excuses to delay approving her resignation. This time, Hae handed in her notice again, determined to pester them until they signed off. She even dreamed of quitting to become a pastry chef, a career she had always loved. Hating to shatter her sister's dream, Hari had been worrying over how to help her when Hae Gang offered her this lucrative gig. Upon hearing the upfront payment alone was 30 million won, Hari instantly agreed to his proposal. With his fake wife secured, Hae Gang arranged for Yoo-ji to pose as his father. Yoo-ji immediately revamped his appearance into a stylish, retired artist and boasted he would charm all the elderly women in the complex using the same charisma that once won over young girls, rounding up more supporters for Hae Gang. Lastly, he ordered his big-eyed subordinate to fetch the man's son from the countryside to play Hae Gang's child, with the added excuse of giving the boy access to better urban schooling. Their makeshift 4-person fake family was fully assembled. Hae Gang took the group to take a family portrait, yet none of them had grown accustomed to their fabricated roles. Hae Gang and his 3 subordinates sat arrogantly in the main seats. Yoo-ji crouched humbly off to the side, and Hari stood stiff and uncomfortable in the back. After rearranging their positions, the ragtag group barely managed to look like a real family on the surface. All preparations were now complete. Hae Gang paraded his cast of fake family members openly through the apartment complex, dead set on claiming the 17.8 billion won he had been dreaming of. A man stepped in to stop an intoxicated man assaulting a security guard when he witnessed the injustice. However, surveillance footage from the scene was maliciously edited and spread by ill-intentioned individuals. Public opinion flipped overnight, and the man who had acted bravely to help others was instead branded a violent brute all across the internet. Elsewhere, a group planned to move into the residential compound to complete relevant registration formalities. Xylee headed to the property management office with this hastily assembled crew. Upon reaching the entrance, she was shocked to discover this was where her elder sister worked. Terrified that her identity would be exposed, she immediately wanted to back out of the arrangement and forfeit her deposit. Her companion Hae Gang told her a formal contract had already been signed, and breaching it would mean paying steep liquidated damages. Xylee hastily called to confirm her sister was out, then relaxed and followed the group inside the property office. She submitted the application form for labor representative and lined up the temporary entourage for the director to verify their information. The director stated applications could be filed online without such an elaborate turnout. Still, Hae Gang grandly introduced every person with him one by one. Confused by his obvious grandstanding, the director only informed them that once registration wrapped up, the candidate list for the 4th precinct would be posted the next morning. As the group tried to curry favor with the director, Ms. Zhang, a gossip monger living in the complex, burst in. She was furious about the monthly maintenance fee of 20,000 and intended to rally other residents to demand answers from property management. Ms. Zhang quickly recognized Hae Gang as the man who had crashed the bully's car previously and greeted him warmly at first. Her attitude shifted instantly when she learned Hae Gang was running for labor representative too. It turned out Ms. Zhang and Hae Gang both belonged to the 4th precinct and were competing in the same election. Only one representative could be elected per precinct, making them open rivals. Ms. Zhang immediately questioned whether the unfamiliar faces accompanying Hae Gang were even residents of the compound, or his family at all, urging the director to launch a thorough investigation. Weary of her incessant chatter, the director politely escorted her away. To keep her secret hidden from her sister, Xylee bought her a plane ticket to France, suggesting she sample local pastries to prepare for opening a dessert shop someday. Not wanting to waste the ticket, the sister took a temporary leave and traveled to France as Xylee arranged. The next day, the property office tallied election applicants. Every other precinct had only one candidate, who would win by default. The 4th precinct alone had 3 candidates, forcing residents to cast votes to decide the winner. To stand out among the 3, Hae Gang bought pink campaign uniforms and paraded around the complex singing and dancing with his makeshift family, desperate to grab residents' attention. He gained barely any votes and instead received noise complaints for disturbing the neighborhood. The group returned home dejected, waiting for Hae Gang to come up with a new campaign strategy. Hae Gang paced back and forth in the room, unable to devise any viable plan. Fed up, Xylee analyzed the campaign pledges of all 3 candidates. Candidate number 2 promised to build a smoking zone at the compound gate. Xylee pointed out hordes of children passed the entrance daily, so mothers would never back this proposal. Candidate number 1, Ms. Zhang, vowed to relocate the subway station exit right outside the complex, a feat even members of parliament could scarcely accomplish, let alone a residential block representative. Xylee ruled her out as well. Hae Gang, candidate number 3, ran on the slogan of becoming the most diligent errand runner for the neighborhood. When Xylee pressed him for concrete implementation plans, Hae Gang hesitated and admitted the slogan was just a fleeting thought with no detailed action plan behind it. Frustrated, Xylee complained none of the 3 candidates were reliable. Just then, Hae Gang's heavyset young subordinate received a call from a courier asking him to pick up a package at the compound gate. The group headed to the parcel drop-off and found residents and couriers screaming at each other in a chaotic standoff. Xylee explained the conflict. Local parents feared delivery trucks would injure children and required all vehicles to enter via the underground parking garage. Yet delivery trucks were too tall to fit through the garage clearance. Modifying their vehicles to comply would cost couriers money out of their own pockets, a cost they refused to bear. No compromise could be reached. Couriers were forced to stack all parcels at the gate for residents to collect themselves. Residents resented the extra trip, while couriers felt unfairly targeted, fueling growing hostility on both sides. At that moment, an elderly woman fell while carrying a sack of rice. Hae Gang rushed over to help her up and offered to carry the rice to her home. Watching this unfold, Xylee suddenly had an idea. This was the perfect chance for Hae Gang to deliver on his promise of being a hardworking errand runner. Thanks to Xylee's arrangements, Hae Gang quickly struck a partnership with the delivery company and hired a group of strong young men to deliver all the parcels piled at the gate straight to every household. Though worn out to the bone each day, their hard work soon won widespread praise from the residents. The neighborhood forum was flooded with complimentary posts about Hae Gang, and people even dubbed him the delivery hero. Seeing Hae Gang gain massive public support, Ms. Zhang spoke sourly, claiming such vote-currying gestures could not last forever, and reminded residents not to forget he was also running as a candidate. Yet residents dodged her whenever she tried to campaign, refusing to listen to a word she said. Seething with rage, Ms. Zhang devised a malicious trick. She posted a thread on the forum alleging parcels delivered by Hae Gang had arrived damaged or gone missing. As soon as the post went up, Hae Gang's hard-earned reputation took an immediate hit. To fight back against Ms. Zhang's underhanded tactics, Xylee resolved to retaliate in kind, stoking public opinion around educational background, a highly sensitive subject among locals. Though Ms. Zhang's academic credentials were genuine, truth mattered little. The priority was to fabricate a scandal first. After Xylee posted the defamatory thread, her subordinates acted as online trolls, flooding the comment section with accusations that Ms. Zhang had falsified her degrees. The rumor spread rapidly across the compound. Desperate to clear her name, Ms. Zhang printed countless copies of her diploma and handed them out door to door for residents to inspect. Still, the more frantically she explained herself, the more suspicious the residents grew. Only one day remained before the election. To keep up the pretense of a loving married couple, Hae Gang personally walked Xylee off work and insisted she link her arm through his to avoid arousing suspicion among neighbors. The pair bickered along the way, until they spotted an intoxicated, violent resident assaulting a security guard inside the security booth. Unable to stand by, Xylee prepared to rush in and intervene, but Hae Gang shoved her into the car. The drunkard was also a resident of the 4th precinct who held valuable votes, and Hae Gang told Xylee not to alienate him, ordering her to drive away at once. Disappointed as she was, Xylee complied and left. But the moment she was gone, Hae Gang turned and stepped into the booth, giving the drunkard a thorough beating for forcing the guard to kneel. Xylee had circled back and witnessed the whole scene, smiling and praising Hae Gang as a real man. Neither of them noticed several young passers-by had filmed Hae Gang hitting the man and uploaded the clip to the neighborhood forum. The next morning, Hae Gang set out to deliver parcels as usual, yet every resident turned him away, reacting as if he were a monster. It was not until he opened the forum that he saw the maliciously edited footage. The uploader had cut out all footage of the drunk attacking the guard, leaving only shots of Hae Gang striking back, paired with an incendiary headline, "The Delivery Hero's Double Life." Overnight, Hae Gang went from a courageous good Samaritan to a violent thug who bullied residents. Xylee fumed that people were judging without knowing the full story. Hae Gang had only acted to protect the guard, yet their explanations rang hollow against the edited video. Even their associates believed Hae Gang's bid for election was completely doomed, and the group waited gloomily for the inevitable loss. Xylee began packing her belongings, ready to terminate their temporary family contract. Against all expectations, when the election results were announced over the loudspeaker, Hae Gang was named the elected Labour representative for the 4th precinct. Hae Gang thought he had misheard, and only believed he had won once everyone around him confirmed the broadcast had called his name. The truth was the head of security knew the full story. He posted on the forum under his real account, explaining that the compound's security staff endured constant verbal abuse and physical assaults from violent residents, and that Hae Gang had stepped forward that day to save the mistreated guard. Once the full truth came to light, public opinion swung back instantly. Residents who had previously slandered him posted apologies one after another, with many more hailing him as a truly worthy hero. Hae Gang stayed up all night reading the flood of positive comments. Winning the Labour representative seat was merely the first step of his plan. His ultimate ambition was to become chairman of the Neighbourhood Residents Committee. Thanks to the security chief publicly setting the record straight, public opinion of Hae Gang made a complete U-turn, and he was hailed as the neighborhood hero once again. Hae Gang knew all of this was Xylee's doing and thanked her sincerely. Xylee had long tracked down the 2 young men who secretly filmed and edited the malicious clip. She threatened them with legal provisions covering unauthorized filming and slander, forcing them to hand over the full uncut footage, which she then passed to the security chief. This was what enabled the chief's truthful statement under his real name. Hae Gang planned to keep delivering parcels for residents until he won the chairmanship of the Residents Committee, at which point he would push to allow delivery trucks inside the compound. Unexpectedly, the management director contacted him that very day to inform him delivery vehicles had been granted permanent access, meaning his parcel delivery volunteer work was no longer needed. What Hae Gang did not know was that a powerful figure had been watching his every move. Jung-won, the real owner of the entire residential complex, chairman of the real estate firm and head of a major political and business alliance. Cruel and ruthless, Jung-won showed no mercy to anyone who failed his expectations. 3 mayors and congressmen who had taken bribes from him botched his project approvals. He lured them onto a boat under the pretense of a sea fishing trip and subjected them to sadistic punishment. The 3 dignitaries, who usually carried great authority, knelt before Jung-won begging for mercy, vowing to do everything possible to push his projects through official reviews. If Jung-won could manipulate mayors and lawmakers at will, dealing with Hae Gang would be as easy as crushing an ant. Enraged that Hae Gang had stolen the spotlight on his property, he ordered his subordinates to contact Chairman Soo and authorize delivery trucks to enter the complex, stripping Hae Gang of his chance to win residents' favor through parcel deliveries. With the parcel delivery campaign no longer viable, their associate told Hae Gang and Xylee to appear in public around the complex more often to maintain visibility. The pair headed to the spot where local mothers regularly gathered, putting on an act as a loving married couple. The group of mothers already knew Hae Gang and swarmed around them eagerly, asking about their married life. Their conflicting answers almost exposed their fake marriage. Xylee hastily claimed she counted years based on the official registration date. They slipped up again on the next question, and Hae Gang scrambled to cover it up by saying he had been referring to his actual age. Fortunately, the mothers suspected nothing, and the awkward topic was quickly brushed aside. A few days later, a meeting of labor representatives was held to elect the new residence committee chairperson. Before the meeting, Xylee had broken down the political landscape for Hae Gang. The incumbent chairman Soo had won 4 consecutive terms, and several labor representatives had held their posts for years, all loyal confidants who formed an unbreakable inner circle. Breaking through their block would be nearly impossible for Hae Gang, yet as soon as the meeting opened, Hae Gang raised his hand without hesitation and announced his candidacy for chair, becoming Chairman Soo's sole rival. Desperate to secure Soo's position, his loyal allies tag-teamed to heap praise on the incumbent while belittling the inexperienced Hae Gang, hoping to make him back down. Hae Gang remained unshaken, fully determined to see the race through to the end. Watching Hae Gang's soaring popularity, Chairman Soo grew increasingly anxious. When a local shop owner came to bribe him with cash, he spotted Hae Gang's file by chance and instantly recognized Hae Gang's past as a former gang boss. Armed with this secret, Chairman Soo immediately called a gathering of building representatives and arranged a live stream open to all residents. Once everyone had assembled, he publicly exposed Hae Gang's gang background. Hae Gang did not deny it, only explaining he had long since left the criminal underworld and severed all ties with his past. The cunning Soo had prearranged technical failures for the live broadcast. The feed cut off the second Hae Gang admitted his gang history, cutting off every word of his subsequent explanation. From that day onward, residents shunned Hae Gang as if he were a monster. Whenever he stepped into an elevator, everyone shrank into the corners. Even when he tidied up trash as usual, he met with disdainful glares from neighbors. Ms. Zhang, who had lost the election, took delight in his misfortune and jeered at him, quoting the old saying that fortunes rise and fall with time, mocking that he had finally fallen from grace. Hae Gang fired back at once, reminding her their feud had all started when she fabricated lies about damaged parcels to sabotage him. The two argued for a long time, yet gradually their resentment faded away. Ms. Zhang had long resented Chairman Soo's clique for monopolizing the residence committee and siphoning profits from neighborhood construction projects, and she began to sympathize with Hae Gang's predicament. To lift his spirits, Ms. Zhang took Hae Gang to a protest demanding the relocation of the Line 3 subway exit to the front gate of the residential compound. After the demonstration, Ms. Zhang treated everyone to a meal. When Hae Gang stepped outside to take a phone call, she asked the other participants whether such protests could ever make a real difference. One attendee confessed that ordinary citizens like them could never alter official government plans. It was akin to ants shaking a towering tree. Most people only came along for the spectacle. Another protester mentioned the government had once revised construction plans abruptly after precious cultural relics were unearthed at a building site. At the mention of cultural relics, a bold scheme popped into Hae Gang's head. If he buried artifacts in advance and pretended to discover them by accident, widespread media coverage might force authorities to shift the planned subway exit. Once the station stood right outside the compound, housing prices would surge. All residents would hail him as a hero who brought prosperity, and no one would fixate on his former gang ties ever again. Thrilled by his plan, Hae Gang rushed home and told his subordinates to contact a close friend living in Japan. Back when Hae Gang ran a casino, a Japanese gambler had been hunted down by vengeful rivals. Hae Gang had fought off the attackers and saved the man's life at great risk to himself. The Japanese gambler had regarded Hae Gang as an unbreakable brother ever since, promising to help him with any trouble he might face in the future. When Hae Gang asked to borrow ancient relics, the man agreed without hesitation. 2 of Hae Gang's men traveled to Japan to retrieve the artifacts, then followed Hae Gang under cover of night to bury them in the zone designated for the subway exit. The next day, Hae Gang rented a large coach bus and brought Ms. Zhang and the other protesters to the construction site. Ms. Zhang believed Hae Gang had been moved by her persistence and threw herself wholeheartedly into the demonstration. Meanwhile, Hae Gang slipped over to the spot where the relics were buried and deliberately tripped over the objects hidden beneath the soil. Ms. Zhang hurried over to check and soon dug a strange artifact out of the mud. News of the cultural relic discovery at the construction site hit the headlines immediately. The government considered halting the original project and relocating the subway exit to Hae Gang's neighborhood. Word spread fast, and housing prices in the compound shot up instantly. Everything unfolded exactly as Hae Gang had plotted. Residents praised him once more as a hero and a lucky charm, no longer dwelling on his gang past, basking in the thrill of his victory. Hae Gang remained unaware that the original subway construction zone was a lucrative real estate project Jungwon had fought tooth and nail to secure. Per standard regulations, any construction must cease immediately upon the discovery of relics, halting all development on the land for a minimum of 3 years. Hae Gang's clever turnaround had single-handedly ruined Jungwon's massively profitable venture. Seething with hatred, Jungwon swore he would make Hae Gang pay dearly. Before long, the formal election for Residence Committee chair was held. Having single-handedly driven up property values, Hae Gang won the race without the slightest doubt and took office as the new chairperson. As Hae Gang and his allies celebrated wildly, the defeated former chairman soon knelt before Jungwon, weeping and begging for mercy. Shortly afterward, Hae Gang crossed paths with Jungwon inside the compound for the first time. Spotting bloodstains on the man's hands and face, he instantly realized this was no ordinary resident. Jungwon flashed a chilling, sinister smile and offered hollow congratulations on Hae Gang's election victory. Before leaving, he left behind a cryptic, menacing warning. The man schemed relentlessly to win the position of Homeowners Association president, all to embezzle over 10 billion won in property maintenance funds. Yet when he showed up with a large bag to withdraw the money, he was stunned to find merely a few thousand won left in the passbook, not even enough to make up a fraction of the total. Hae Gang was successfully elected president of the Homeowners Association. Everyone raised their glasses in celebration and asked him to deliver an inauguration speech. Having harbored ulterior motives from the start, Hae Gang had no desire to spout empty, high-sounding platitudes. Just then, Hari suddenly stood up and warned everyone that property management had long been a hotbed of corruption. She hoped none of them would end up appearing in the news one day. Under no circumstances should anyone get involved in corrupt practices. Hae Gang and his accomplices grew uneasy, unable to meet Hari's eyes. To avoid arousing suspicion, they clinked glasses with her reluctantly. As the others chatted casually about funny incidents involving delivery couriers, Hae Gang wore a grave expression, his thoughts drifting to Jungwon. The last time Jungwon shook hands with him, his face and hands were covered in blood. He was clearly a dangerous man, though Hae Gang knew nothing of his background. Still, once he got hold of the presidential seal, he could withdraw the maintenance funds at once and flee with the money. Meanwhile, Jungwon flew into a rage. The discovery of cultural relics at the planned subway station site had forced the project to suspend indefinitely. The official who had botched the matter knelt down voluntarily to accept punishment, submitting himself to Jungwon's wrath. Jungwon violently beat the 3 men in a fit of fury, then demanded to know if there was any way to resume construction. To restart the project, Jungwon paid off a cultural relics appraisal expert, ordering him to testify that the artifacts were counterfeit. The expert told him soil residue found on the relics did not match the soil composition at the construction site. That meant the relics could not have been unearthed there naturally. Someone had most likely buried them on purpose in advance. Jungwon gritted his teeth with anger. He swore that once he tracked down the man who had sabotaged his plan, he would make him pay dearly. He immediately ordered his men to hunt for the culprit. It did not take long for Jungwon to find out that Hae Gang was the one who had planted the relics at the subway site. He instantly realized everything had been Hae Gang's ploy to win the Homeowners Association election. Unaware that his scheme had been exposed, Hae Gang headed to the property management office with 3 subordinates. The property manager halted his work to greet him, and Hae Gang caught sight of the seal casually placed beside the desk. After a brief welcome ceremony, the manager led Hae Gang to the presidential office and formally handed over the bank passbook and official seal to him. Staring at the seal he had longed for, Hae Gang imagined it glowing, eager to put it to use right away. As soon as the manager left, Hae Gang plotted with his 3 subordinates. They resolved to go to the bank first thing the next morning to withdraw the funds. They divided tasks. One would prepare large sacks for the cash, another sell all his valuables, and the third steal the manager's spare seal. Shortly after they finished planning, Ms. Zhang burst into the room. To celebrate Hae Gang's inauguration, she had specially ordered a nameplate for the president and volunteered to work as his senior secretary. She intended to keep a close watch on him, ensuring he remained impartial and incorruptible and never let power breed corruption. Before Hae Gang could turn her down, the manager walked in to remind him that the meeting with contractors was about to begin. Every contractor had brought gifts to curry favor with the new president. However, Ms. Zhang did not give Hae Gang a chance to speak. Acting as senior secretary, she announced the meeting was over. No sooner had Hae Gang returned to his office than Hari rushed in anxiously. The kindergarten was holding a parent-child activity, and only Kyungbok showed up without any guardian. Ms. Zhang argued such trivial matters ought not to trouble the busy association president. Hae Gang convinced her otherwise, saying appearing at the event would help him build a caring public image and win more support from residents. Ms. Zhang then escorted the pair to the kindergarten with great fanfare, publicizing that the association president was attending the activity in person. Kyungbok, who had been gloomy earlier, jumped for joy the moment he spotted Hae Gang and Hari. The 3 stumbled and fell during the competition, with Hari landing right on top of Hae Gang. The atmosphere instantly grew charged and awkward. While Hae Gang attended the event, his three subordinates carried out their plan. One bought an extra-large, sturdy sack, another sold everything valuable he owned, the third slipped into the property office under a pretext and stole the property manager's seal without a soul noticing. After the parent-child activity, Hari headed home with Hae Gang, carrying the curling iron she had won for Kyungbook. She was glad the event had brought them closer, making it easier to pretend to be a family from now on. Just then, Hae Gang received a message from his subordinate confirming all preparations were complete. Ignoring Hari's feelings, he suddenly announced their fake marriage arrangement was over. He would pay the remaining remuneration, and Hari need not come to work anymore. Kyungnam, Kyungbook's biological father, planned to send the boy back to his hometown. Yet Kyungbook had grown fond of living with Grandpa Hae Gang and his pretend parents and refused to leave. Tears welled up in Kyungnam's eyes. He felt terrible for his son, but to get the money to rescue Hae Gang's adoptive father, he steeled his heart and pressed ahead with the plan. That night, Hae Gang told Yuji the news. They would withdraw the money the next day, and the fake family would be dissolved. As a reward for Yuji's help, all his outstanding gambling debts would be written off. But if he gambled again, Hae Gang vowed to cut off his hands. Yuji knew Hae Gang was tough on the surface yet soft inside. Genuine affection had grown between them over time, and the thought of parting filled him with sorrow. Once everything was ready, Hae Gang set off with his three men, carrying the large sack to the bank. He handed over the passbook and seal, waiting nervously and excitedly for the cash to be brought out. In the end, however, the staff only handed him a single banknote and a few coins. Hae Gang hurriedly checked the passbook and was stunned to see the balance was merely 2,531. He thought the money must be stored in other passbooks, yet every booklet he checked only showed a balance of a few thousand won. Convinced Yuji had deceived him, Hae Gang had him tied up and brought to the rooftop. Yuji pleaded his innocence. He had personally called the property office and been clearly told the maintenance fund amounted to 17.8 billion won. He had made no such thing up. Instead of punishing him, they needed to trace where the funds had gone as soon as possible. His subordinate reminded Hae Gang that to uncover the truth, he had to remain association president, and the fake family could not be disbanded. Having just dismissed Hari, Hae Gang went to her home to apologize, begging her to keep pretending to be his wife. Hari had already developed feelings for him. Once her resentment faded, she finally agreed to continue helping him. To locate the missing maintenance funds, Hae Gang tested the property manager. He asked whether the existing maintenance fund could cover the huge cost of elevator repairs in the complex. The manager replied without hesitation that there would be no problem at all. Hae Gang probed further about the payment procedure. The manager explained that payments required their two joint seals, then would be processed by the finance section chief. The finance chief, Hae Gang, was currently on vacation and expected back shortly. Hae Gang stared at Hae Gang's photo on the wall, eager to meet the person holding the purse strings. Unbeknownst to him, Hae Gang had already returned. She spotted Hari in the complex and overheard Kyungbook calling her mom. Hae Gang demanded an explanation. Overwhelmed, Hari had no choice but to follow her home. Meanwhile, Ms. Zhang began to sense something odd about this family. While wandering the complex, she first saw the three subordinates corner Yuji, warning him never to gamble again. She was astonished to witness the sons treating their father so roughly. She walked on and saw Hari with Kyungbook. Uncomfortable when Kyungbook called her mom, Hari told him he could call her sister when no one was around. Ms. Zhang happened to hear Kyungbook address Hari as sister. One strange incident after another made her increasingly suspicious, and she resolved to dig deeper into the family's secrets. Fearing Hae Gang would find out she was colluding with Hae Gang in the pretense, Hari rushed to see him and said she needed to resign amid this emergency. But Hae Gang had not yet found the missing money and refused to let her leave. He told her plainly that everyone in this makeshift family needed her. Ms. Zhang accidentally overheard Hae Gang and Hari admitting they were a fake married couple. She immediately suspected Hae Gang had set up the pretend family solely to win the trust of residents and secure the position of association president, and that he harbored sinister hidden motives. She threatened to expose his scheme by posting everything on the community forum. Panicked, Hae Gang and Hari rushed to explain that Ms. Zhang must have misheard them, insisting they were a genuine married pair. To stop her from leaking the information, Hae Gang's subordinates deliberately caused an elevator malfunction and activated signal jammers to cut off mobile network access, leaving her unable to send out any posts. Early the next morning, Hae Gang and Hari agreed on secret signals, planning to put on an affectionate show for Ms. Zhang. They pretended to encounter her while jogging and flirted with one another right in front of her, yet Ms. Zhang saw straight through their act. Real married couples did not hold hands while running. Their performance felt far too forced. When this tactic failed, Hae Gang took Hari's advice and switched to an emotional approach. He brought Ms. Zhang to the subway station where cultural relics had been unearthed and recalled how they had protested side by side to push for a route adjustment for the station. After stirring up her fond memories, Hae Gang launched into an emotional speech, claiming he loved his wife deeply. He then fabricated a story about his father's chaotic private life, saying he and his 3 half-brothers had all suffered greatly because their father was a compulsive gambler. Even so, they still lived together in an attempt to mend their fractured family ties. Seeing Ms. Zhang waver in her resolve to report them, Hae Gang begged her to give him 1 week. If she still believed they were a fake family after 7 days, she could expose him then. Considering Hae Gang had single-handedly driven up property prices in the neighborhood, Ms. Zhang reluctantly agreed. As soon as he got home, Hae Gang called an emergency meeting. They had to locate the missing maintenance funds within a week. If they recovered the money and fled to SungHa, the truth about their fake family would no longer matter. Yuji pondered all night. He believed even if Chairman SEO, the property manager and the finance chief had colluded to embezzle the funds, they could not have drained every single account completely. There must be another mastermind pulling strings behind the scenes. He suggested Hae Gang use his authority as president to push forward various community maintenance projects. If construction proceeded despite empty official accounts, it would prove someone was paying contractors privately, giving them a lead to trace the missing capital. Hae Gang and his men sprang into action. They would not overlook even the smallest detail. If no faults existed, they would create them to force necessary maintenance that required drawing from the maintenance fund. After deliberate tampering by the 5 of them, they manufactured numerous issues including ground cracks, leaking water pipes and uneven pavement. Hae Gang then convened an urgent meeting, listing all the discovered defects and proposing to use the maintenance fund for repairs. However, the labor representatives led by Chairman SEO still supported the former president. Following Chairman Seo's cue, everyone voted against the proposals. A show of hands was called, and with no allies in attendance, Hae Gang suffered a complete defeat. Not a single maintenance plan passed. Jungwon watched the live stream of the meeting and received a report from his subordinate that Hae Gang had attempted to withdraw all the maintenance funds using the passbook, meaning he must have discovered the accounts were empty. Jungwon instantly realized Hae Gang had fought so hard to become president in order to profit from the maintenance fund. Now that he found the money was gone, he intended to launch maintenance works to trace where the funds had vanished. Hae Gang remained unaware that Jungwon had figured out all his plans. Before leaving the property office, he paid a visit to Hae Gang, the finance section chief. After he departed, Hae Gang remarked that many changes had taken place in the complex during her vacation. She had heard that Solitary Man had become association president. Her colleague told her Hae Gang was not actually living alone, he had a large family. Hae Gang was immediately filled with doubt. He distinctly recalled that when Hae Gang first submitted his application to become a labor representative, he had stated plainly that he lived alone, unmarried. To dismantle the power block left behind by Chairman SEO, Hae Gang ordered his subordinates to investigate every labor representative loyal to SEO. He was determined to uncover what benefits these sycophants had received. The subordinates set to work, gathering utility bills for water, electricity and gas for all representatives. Hari soon spotted an anomaly. Exactly 123 households had 0 heating charges recorded. Further investigation revealed these residents were either labor representatives or staunch supporters of Chairman SEO. Over the 6 years of Seo's term, all 123 households had paid nothing for heating. In other words, without their knowledge, the rest of the residents had footed the entire bill for them. The bespectacled subordinate also discovered the anonymous user posting malicious slander against Hae Gang on the community forum belonged to one of these households who evaded heating fees. Seeking to eliminate all obstacles in one go, Hae Gang planned to stage a protest as a victim of unfair heating charges. He intended to expose how Chairman SEO had abused his authority to shield 123 households from paying heating bills for 6 years. As the newly elected president, he vowed to fight corruption to the end. Ms. Zhang seized the chance to amplify the scandal, posting the story on the community forum and dubbing it the 123 incident. She called on all residents to unite and ensure Chairman SEO and those involved faced consequences. As the controversy snowballed, the Property Management Office was inundated with calls from various regulatory authorities. A hearing on the 123 incident was soon held. To calm public anger, the building representatives who owed heating fees collectively resolved to resign from their posts. Led by Ms. Zhang, the residents refused to accept such a lenient settlement. Hae Gang took the opportunity to propose using maintenance funds to replace every gas meter in the complex. The moment he finished speaking, Jungwon stepped forward as an ordinary resident. He claimed his own heating bill also showed 0 charges. He had never checked his meters or statements and had been unaware of the issue. Still, he offered to settle the full arrears and urged everyone else to do the same. Under pressure from Jungwon, Chairman SEO had no choice but to agree that all 123 households must repay their unpaid heating fees. Once the repayment plan passed, Hae Gang announced all recovered money would be returned to residents who had overpaid. The declaration won thunderous applause and boosted his popularity once more. Ms. Zhang, who had remained highly suspicious of him, mistakenly believed Hae Gang had asked for 1 week solely to resolve the 123 incident. and her doubts finally faded. Hae Gang remained unaware that Jung-won was the true puppet master manipulating Chairman SEO and secretly controlling the maintenance funds. A few days earlier, Jung-won had dipped into the maintenance fund to bribe newspapers, television stations, and influential online influencers. He coordinated all three outlets to push identical narratives, claiming the cultural relics unearthed at the subway site were counterfeit, planted by groups opposed to the new town development project. Now that the heating fee scandal had eroded residents' trust in property management, freely diverting maintenance funds had become far more difficult. Enraged by Chairman Seo's incompetence, Jung-won beat him to death. He buried SEO on Taegaon Hill, letting his body fertilize the trees. He then summoned the property manager to collect money and forced him to pay respects to Seo's grave. Trembling with terror, the manager dropped bundles of cash all over the ground as he boarded his vehicle. The whole scene was photographed by two subordinates Hae Gang had sent to keep watch. The subordinates delivered the photos to Hae Gang. Gas meters were scheduled for replacement the next day. Hae Gang suspected the cash the manager collected was intended for construction payments. To identify who was funding the manager, they began researching ownership of Taegaon Hill. Their investigation led them to Taesan Construction, indicating the mastermind was likely behind the company. Hae Gang visited Taesan Construction to meet its chairman. To his surprise, the receptionist informed him the chairman was already waiting. He was even more stunned to find Jung-won seated inside. Jung-won shook hands with him in his capacity as chairman of Taesan Construction. He then produced photographs of Hae Gang visiting multiple banks with the property passbook to withdraw money, and exposed Hae Gang's secret of planting fake relics at the subway site. Jung-won issued a veiled warning. He excelled at hunting down anything hidden. Whatever Hae Gang was searching for, he would never find it on Jung-won's turf. Only at that moment did Hae Gang realize Jung-won knew every detail about him. Hae Gang never imagined that Jung-won was not only the mastermind controlling the maintenance fund behind the scenes but also had dug up every detail about him. Faced with the crisis, Hae Gang quickly adjusted his tactics. He lied that he had no idea the maintenance fund already had an owner. Since the money could not be touched, he offered to defect to Jung-won and become the new custodian of the vault. Jung-won admired Hae Gang's composed response amid danger and acknowledged his earlier scheme to stage an unearthed cultural relic, forcing the subway exit to be rerouted. He decided to grant Hae Gang a chance to prove his loyalty and present his pledge of allegiance. The moment Hae Gang walked out of SungHa-Yoon's office building, his expression darkened. He secretly swore that he would get the key to SungHa-Yoon's vault no matter what. While Hae Gang ran into trouble, Xiao Li was having an equally tough time. When Xiao Ting dined with her property colleagues, she ran straight into Xiao Li. The management director greeted her warmly, repeatedly addressing her as Madam Chairman, exposing the secret that she and Hae Gang were only pretending to be husband and wife. Xiao Li could no longer keep up the pretense and had to confess to her sister. She told Xiao Ting that Hae Gang was merely her client, and she had been acting as his wife all along. Xiao Ting could not understand why her sister would engage in such absurd deception. Unwilling to keep lying to her sister, Xiao Li finally revealed the truth. She had never passed the bar exam, and her claim of working at a law firm was nothing but a lie. She knew how hard her sister had worked to raise her, yet she refused to let Xiao Ting carry the burden of her entire life. That overwhelming love had begun to suffocate her. The sisters fell into a fierce quarrel. Xiao Li remained gloomy all day and drank alone after work to ease her sorrows. Hae Gang noticed her odd mood. When he found her, he saw her crying by herself. Xiao Li poured out all her troubles with her sister. To comfort her, Hae Gang shared his own experience of being taken in and protected by his adoptive father. He understood the pressure of owing others favors, yet sometimes it was these bonds that pushed people forward. These words lifted Xiao Li's spirits greatly. For the first time, she discovered that the rough, hot-tempered Hae Gang possessed a gentle and delicate heart. The next day, Hae Gang went to visit his adoptive father, only to be told the old man was unwell and unavailable for a meeting. Hae Gang immediately arranged a meeting with Minister Sun and demanded that his adoptive father be granted medical parole. Minister Sun still insisted that money must be exchanged for the man's release. Hae Gang issued an angry warning: if anything happened to his adoptive father, they would not get a single cent. Minister Sun finally backed down. He agreed to let the old man receive external medical treatment first, but insisted negotiations for full release would still require money. After returning, Hae Gang told his underlings and Xinyi about SungHa-Yoon's true identity and announced that he aimed to become SungHa-Yoon's vault custodian, yet claiming that position meant gaining SungHa-Yoon's trust first. The most urgent task was to locate Chairman Su and obtain information about the vault. They searched everywhere but found no trace of Chairman Su. Just then, the elevator carrying Hae Gang and Xiao Li suddenly malfunctioned. Xiao Li could not help complaining to Hae Gang that as the acting chairman, he ought to replace all these frequently faulty elevators. Xiao Li's offhand remark instantly sparked an idea in Hae Gang's mind. He promptly called a meeting of building representatives. First, he listed the residential facilities requiring maintenance, including the repeatedly malfunctioning elevators. Then he shifted his tone, pointing out that expenses would keep mounting. For the present and the future, the residential maintenance fund contribution from every household had to be raised. Hae Gang was brimming with confidence, guaranteeing that more than half of the residents would vote in favor of increasing the maintenance fund on polling day. Early the next morning, residents heading to work, school, grocery shopping or walks all found the elevators broken down. Some were trapped inside, while others saw out-of-service maintenance notices posted on elevator doors the moment they arrived. For the entire day, every resident entering or leaving the complex had to take the stairs. Everyone was exhausted and grumbling, and their desire to replace the elevators reached its peak. In the end, over half of the residents approved the maintenance fund hike. Upon hearing the result, Hae Gang excitedly embraced the others to celebrate. Jong-yuan was equally astonished when he learned the news. He never expected Hae Gang would truly expand the funds under his control. The previous day, Hae Gang had taken the initiative to meet Jong-yuan and asked him to arrange maintenance staff to act in the middle of the night to shut down all elevators quietly. Jong-yuan agreed on a trial basis, never imagining Hae Gang would deliver such a huge surprise. One subordinate worried that if the elevators were not replaced for a long time after the maintenance fund was raised, the residents would stage a protest sooner or later. Yet Jong-yuan had long seen through human nature. Once the money arrived, they only needed to keep delaying the replacement plan under various excuses. People were forgetful. As long as the elevators resumed operation, they would soon forget their demand for new elevators. The subordinate then reported that Hae Gang wanted to seize the 10 billion maintenance fund to rescue his adoptive father. The man detaining Hae Gang's adoptive father was Director Gua, who hoped to join the medical society but was asked by Jong-yuan for a 10 billion admission fee. The one directly demanding money from Hae Gang was Minister Sun, Director Gua's lackey. Jong-yuan did not anticipate that after everything came full circle, the root of the matter traced back to himself. Even if Hae Gang managed to get hold of the 10 billion, the money would eventually flow back into his own hands. He found the whole affair increasingly intriguing. After looking into Hae Gang's background, Jong-yuan sought out Xiaoting. Over the years, no matter how he embezzled the maintenance funds, Xiaoting had managed to cover up the accounts flawlessly. Admiring her capability, Jong-yuan persuaded her not to resign and extended an offer for her to join Taishan Construction. That night, Xiaoting told Xiao Li her decision to work at a large corporation and urged her sister to keep sitting for the bar exam, telling her not to worry about anything else. Xiao Li refused to let her sister bear the burden of her life once more. This time, she wanted to chase her dreams on her own and let her sister pursue the life she loved. Xiao Li knew her words had hurt her sister. After parting ways, she wandered through the residential compound in tears and happened to run into Hae Gang. Since he had already seen her in such a vulnerable state, she simply asked Hae Gang if she could stay for the night. Hae Gang gave Xiao Li the bedroom and slept on the sofa in the living room. The next morning, just as the underling wondered why Hae Gang had slept outside, he saw a drowsy Xiao Li walk out of Hae Gang's bedroom. The group immediately began teasing them, suspecting the fake couple had become real. Afraid of disturbing them, everyone grabbed pillows and quilts and rushed out of the house, leaving the place for the two of them. Meanwhile, Jong-yuan summoned Director Gua. Director Gua presented a box of premium ginseng and fawned that the 10 billion would be delivered soon. Jong-yuan feigned ignorance and pressed him on where the money would come from. Director Gua confessed that a casino operator was raising the funds on his behalf. After sending Director Gua away, Jong-yuan summoned Hae Gang at once and announced that he had passed the assessment and could officially join the team. There happened to be an urgent assignment. Jong-yuan instructed Hae Gang to collect money from his subordinate Xiaojun and deliver it to an apartment in Gainan City. It was money he had embezzled. With an audit looming, the funds had to be temporarily returned for inspection before being withdrawn again. Hae Gang headed to meet Xiaojun as instructed. On the way, he received a call from his underling. The underling had found out that the last place Chairman Su was seen was Tai Jae-yuan. Chairman Su had entered the site and never emerged again, and all his family members had vanished too. He was most likely killed. The underling warned Hae Gang that Jong-yuan was ruthless, and managing the vault for him was tantamount to walking alongside a tiger. By then, Hae Gang had already reached his destination, Tai Jae-yuan. Beside every sapling in the garden stood a plaque engraved with a person's name, and Chairman Su's name was clearly visible among them. Xiaojun told Hae Gang blankly that these were all people who had outlived their usefulness. Coincidentally, the sum Xiaojun handed to Hae Gang was exactly 10 billion. As Hae Gang drove with the huge sum toward the apartment in Gainan City, he suddenly received a call from Minister Sun. Minister Sun informed him that his adoptive father had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and only had 3 months left to live. If he did not want his adoptive father to die in custody, he must bring the money for the exchange immediately. Upon hearing this, Hae Gang turned the car around without hesitation. He told Minister Sun he would arrive shortly with the 10 billion and demanded his adoptive father's immediate release. What Hae Gang did not know was that this 10 billion was the final test Jong-yuan had prepared for him. When Hae Gang arrived at the hospital and prepared to unload the money from the car, he suddenly spotted the family portrait drawn by his fake son Kingbae. Memories of the time he had spent with all of them flashed through his mind. Hae Gang knew that if the mission failed, this makeshift family would likely be wiped out entirely, just like Chairman Su's family. To protect those he needed to safeguard, he finally showed up empty-handed before Minister Sun. Minister Sun flew into a rage and slapped him across the face. Still, Hae Gang knew full well that the man was obsessed with the 10 billion and would never dare harm his adoptive father before getting the money. Entering the ward, Hae Gang looked at his sleeping adoptive father and apologized, vowing to get him out as soon as possible. On the other side, Jong-yuan learned that Hae Gang had delivered the full 10 billion to the designated apartment. He had not expected Hae Gang to pass the test, so he decided to formally take him under his wing. Seizing the chance, Hae Gang laid out his terms. He was smarter and more capable than Chairman Su. If he was going to manage the vault for Jong-yuan, he deserved proper compensation. Hae Gang explained that after the maintenance fund was raised, an extra 600 million would flow in every month, making him worth at least 10 billion. Jong-yuan pondered for a moment and finally agreed to his demands. Hae Gang returned home, planning to tell his underlings how he could earn the 10 billion. Unexpectedly, everyone suddenly brought out a cake and sang the birthday song. Staring at this warm big family before him, Hae Gang's eyes grew wet. This fake family, assembled for a scam, had long become an irreplaceable part of his life. The next day, Jong-yuan formally introduced Hae Gang to the management director and Xia Ting. He announced that Hae Gang would replace Chairman Su, forming a new iron triangle with the two to manage the apartment complex and funds on his behalf. He also gave each of them a sum of money. The management director was amazed that Hae Gang had gained SungHa trust in such a short time. Xia Ting, however, knew about the partnership between Xiao Li and Hae Gang. Fearing her sister would get dragged into trouble, she warned Hae Gang to disband the fake family once they were alone. Hae Gang had no idea Xia Ting was Xiao Li's sister. Hearing that she knew his secret, he was instantly filled with suspicion. Back home, Xia Ting warned Xiao Li to enter cooperation with Hae Gang without delay, for Xiao Li had no clue what kind of man Hae Gang really was. Xiao Li, in turn, did not know her sister was already tangled up in SungHa's criminal network, and thought her words made no sense. Overwhelmed with anxiety, Xia Ting pulled a secret ledger out from the bottom of the cabinet. For years, she had recorded every falsified account to guard against Jong-yuan turning on her and silencing her. The evidence inside was enough to bring Jong-yuan down. While Hae Gang strove to obtain the 10 billion from Jong-yuan, another dispute erupted in the residential complex. Outsiders entered the compound through the access control and used public facilities such as the sauna room, sparking complaints from property owners. After reviewing surveillance footage with Ms. Zhang, Hae Gang found more than 100 cases of unauthorized outsiders using shared amenities. Most of these outsiders had been brought in by homeowners, while only a small number entered via tenants. Several building representatives loyal to Chairman Su saw an opportunity. They intended to stir up conflict between homeowners and tenants to create trouble for Hae Gang. On the day of the homeowners committee meeting, Ms. Zhang, the chairman's secretary, presented the investigation results. Only 4 incidents of improper facility use involved tenants. She urged everyone to stop targeting tenants. No sooner had she finished speaking than a mother publicly exposed her. Ms. Zhang defended tenants because she was a tenant herself. The mothers had long resented Ms. Zhang acting like she owned the place and lecturing them. They found out that the residence she lived in was not purchased property but public rental housing managed by the government. The mother pointed out openly that regulations stipulated only homeowners could join the homeowners committee. As merely a tenant, Ms. Zhang had no right to sit in on the meeting. The venue erupted in murmurs. The building representatives supporting Representative Su fanned the flames, demanding that Ms. Zhang leave immediately. Devastated, Ms. Zhang went home and broke down in tears. She lost all her usual energy afterward, staying listlessly in bed every day. Surprisingly, after the incident escalated, that mother took the initiative to apologize to Hae Gang. She only wanted to knock Ms. Zhang down a peg or two, not snuff out her passion. Hae Gang hoped she would apologize to Ms. Zhang in person to help the wounded woman pull herself together again. Meanwhile, a government official informed Jong-yuan that the president intended to roll out policies benefiting ordinary citizens to build an approachable public image. He demanded their new town increase its tenant population to support vulnerable groups. Tenants paid far lower fees than property owners, which would directly hurt SungHa's interests. For this reason, he harbored deep resentment toward tenants. Just then, the management director reported the conflicts between homeowners and tenants in the residential complex. Jong-yuan immediately summoned Hae Gang and ordered him to collect identity documents and information on every tenant in the compound. Once he obtained the list, he would drive all the tenants out little by little. In return, Jong-yuan would arrange the 10 billion Hae Gang needed as soon as possible. Hae Gang desperately needed the money to save his adoptive father, yet he refused to harm tenants like Ms. Zhang, who truly cared about the community. Back home, he chanced to see his underlings propping instant noodle pots on the property management regulations. He snatched the book at once and asked Xiao Li to explain the clauses related to tenants. The next day, Hae Gang visited Ms. Zhang's home and got straight to the point, asking her to resign as secretary to the homeowners committee chairman. Ms. Zhang thought Hae Gang planned to evict her too, but he went on to invite her to run for the new chairman position and manage the complex alongside him. Prompted by Xiao Li, Hae Gang had learned that residential complexes with more than 150 tenant households were legally required to set up a tenant representative committee. Their compound housed a full 1,200 tenant households, yet no committee representing tenants had ever been established. Hae Gang told Ms. Zhang the news right away and encouraged her to stand in the election. With Hae Gang's support, the reinvigorated Ms. Zhang canvassed residents and delivered speeches. She was successfully elected chair of the Tenant Representative Committee. The group of mothers who had opposed her even brought gifts to congratulate her, and the two sides finally buried the hatchet. When Zhong Yuan heard the outcome, he was speechless with rage. Hae Gang had fulfilled the task of gathering tenant information by getting them to register voluntarily, while granting tenants a collective voice to safeguard their rights. Burning to fly into a temper, Zhong Yuan could find no fault with Hae Gang's actions and had to swallow his anger. After helping Hae Gang resolve the tenant dispute, Xiao Li got off work on time and headed home. While cleaning, she accidentally discovered the secret ledger Xia Ting had hidden at the bottom of the cabinet. Staring at the dense records of falsified accounts, she realized her sister had been cooking the books for others all these years, funding her education with tainted money. When Xia Ting returned home, Xiao Li confronted her angrily. She could not accept that the price of chasing her dreams was her sister repeatedly covering up crimes for criminals. With that, she stormed out of the house. Xia Ting wept alone and submitted her resignation to the management director once more. Seeing the director still making excuses to delay approval, she revealed the existence of the secret ledger. If she was allowed to resign and guaranteed safety for the rest of her life, she would destroy the ledger with her own hands. Realizing how grave the situation was, the management director reported this to Zhong Yuan without delay. Zhong Yuan hated nothing more than being threatened. He immediately called Hae Gang, telling him to collect truck keys from Ziajin and drive strictly according to his orders. If he completed the mission, he would receive the 10 billion right away. Hae Gang picked up the keys and climbed into the truck. Zhong Yuan directed him via surveillance cameras, instructing him when to go straight and turn, before issuing his cruelest command. The woman waiting by the road was none other than Xia Ting. The truck hurtled straight toward her. Terrified, Xia Ting slumped to the ground. At the split second before impact, Hae Gang swerved sharply and slammed on the brakes. The truck screeched to a halt narrowly in front of Ziajin's vehicle. Ignoring Ziajin's attempts to stop him, he strode straight to where Zhong Yuan was. Zhong Yuan laid out the 10 billion Hae Gang had long coveted and demanded furiously. If Hae Gang had run the woman over as ordered, he could have taken the money to rescue his adoptive father. Yet he could not even complete such a simple task. Pushed to the brink by SungHa Yuan's coercion, Hae Gang finally snapped. I may be a bad man, but you are nothing but trash. Right before the operation to hit Xia Ting was set to begin, Xiao Li ran to Hae Gang in tears begging for help. She told Hae Gang that her sister kept a secret ledger containing evidence of the misappropriated community maintenance funds. She suspected her sister had gotten tangled up in a dangerous conspiracy. It dawned on Hae Gang that Xia Ting was Xiao Li's older sister. He immediately figured out Zhong Yuan's real motive for ordering him to drive the car with the 10 billion yuan fund, to eliminate Xia Ting. Even if he turned Zhong Yuan down, Zhong Yuan would hire some other desperate criminal to do the job. Rather than hand the wheel over to someone else, he would do it himself. At least he could find a way to save the target. So Hae Gang pretended to carry out the order. As the car was about to crash into Xia Ting, he sharply spun the steering wheel at the very last second. Two underlings lying in ambush rushed forward at once and whisked Xia Ting away from the scene. With the mission a failure, Hae Gang broke completely with Zhong Yuan and openly exposed the existence of the secret ledger to his face. Seeing this, Zhong Yuan quickly proposed a new deal. Trade the secret ledger for Hae Gang's adoptive father's freedom. He then called Director Guo right in front of Hae Gang and approved Director Guo's admission to E-Society on the condition that Hae Gang's adoptive father be released immediately. Director Guo agreed on the spot. Back at their hideout, Hae Gang pressed the rescued Xia Ting about where the ledger was hidden. Xiao Li stepped forward and said she was the one who had hidden it, and her sister had no idea of its location. Hae Gang demanded she hand it over. The two sisters could never resolve the current crisis on their own. The people trying to kill Xia Ting wielded immense power. If he had the ledger, he could use it for negotiations. But Xiao Li flat out refused. The ledger held not only Zhong Yuan's crimes, but also proof that her sister had cooked the books for them. Handing it over would mean surrendering her sister's criminal evidence. Meanwhile, Zhong Yuan's men checked the surveillance cameras and found that Xia Ting was hiding at Hae Gang's place. Following the trail, they uncovered that Hae Gang's so-called family was entirely fake. Xiao Li was a wife he had paid to play the part, and the other three brothers were thugs from a casino. Zhong Yuan instantly came up with a plan. Since this group had gathered for money, he would use money to tear them apart. At the same time, Hae Gang pieced everything together from Zhong Yuan's phone call to Director Guo. To get into E-Society, Director Guo needed to pay a 10 billion yuan membership fee, which was why he kept pressuring Hae Gang to raise the money. And the person truly in charge of E-Society was none other than Zhong Yuan. Hae Gang decided to find out who the other E-Society members were, and what Zhong Yuan Yuan was really after. To destroy the bond between Hae Gang and his fake family, Jung Yuan tracked down Xiao Li when she was alone in the community. He offered her 500 million won for the secret ledger. Only then did Xiao Li learn that the dangerous figure Hae Gang had kept quiet about was Jung Yuan. She rejected the offer and warned him she would not let him get away if he harmed her sister again. When bribery failed, Jung Yuan spilled Hae Gang's secrets to Xiao Li. He told her Hae Gang had hired her to pretend to be his wife, solely to become chairman, and embezzle the community's 17 billion yuan maintenance fund. Feeling deceived, Xiao Li stormed home and screamed at Hae Gang. She had genuinely believed Hae Gang wanted to be a decent chairman and had helped him plan things all along, only to find out everything was just a scheme to steal the maintenance fund. Provoked by her outburst, Hae Gang shot back that Xiao Li had joined this fake family for money too. The two had a fierce quarrel. Xiao Li tried to drag her sister away, but Hae Gang warned her, since Jung Yuan had found her, he already knew Xiaoting was hiding here. Stepping outside right now would be delivering Xiaoting straight into Jung Yuan's hands. Calm-headed Xiaoting pulled her sister into the room. She told Xiao Li that even before saving her, Hae Gang already knew the 17 billion yuan fund had long been siphoned off. Besides, even when Xiao Li refused to give up the ledger, Hae Gang still risked his life protecting them. That proved he was not as rotten as Jung Yuan claimed. Having calmed down, Xiao Li went to talk to Hae Gang. Hae Gang confessed that the police were detaining his adoptive father to force him to come up with the money. To save his father, he had no choice but to raise the huge sum. He admitted that he had indeed harbored ulterior motives when he first ran for chairman, and apologized for dragging the unsuspecting Xiao Li into his scam. Nevertheless, he promised that even if Xiao Li never handed over the ledger, he would keep the two sisters safe and let them stay without worry. Xiao Li finally understood Hae Gang's predicament and stopped blaming him. Yet neither of them could bring themselves to speak to each other openly in front of everyone, so they used Kingbei as their go-between. The quick-wit Kingbei soon turned into a helpful matchmaker. Pretending to be furious, he forced the two to reconcile. Jung Yuan remained unaware that his scheme to sow discord had fallen apart. At that moment, he was touring the New City project with members of E-Society, planning to make huge profits off this venture. Meanwhile, Hae Gang's three underlings disguised themselves as geological surveyors, and secretly photographed every member of E-Society. Back at base, they revealed these people's identities to Hae Gang. Besides Jung Yuan, E-Society included the senior presidential secretary for civil affairs, second in rank only to the president, a Supreme Court justice, a daily newspaper publisher, and the prosecutor general. These powerful figures held sway over politics, law, the press and other critical sectors. Some of the most influential people in the country. It dawned on Hae Gang why Jung Yuan could act with such reckless impunity. He had these high-ranking people backing him. Before the group could work out a plan against Jung Yuan, Ms. Zhang suddenly rang the doorbell. Newly elected tenant community chairperson, she had spotted a large hole in the kindergarten's outer wall during her night patrol. With exposed steel rebar visible, the whole building posed an imminent safety hazard. Because children's lives were at stake, she had come straight to Hae Gang. The next day, while Song Kingbei was at school, Xiao Li overheard other mothers gossiping. Everyone suspected the kindergarten was shoddily built substandard construction. Ms. Zhang was torn. Exposing the truth would drive property prices down, but keeping quiet meant children attended class inside a dangerous building every day. That night, Hae Gang and the others snuck into the kindergarten to investigate. They found severe structural damage, noticeably slanting floors, cracks running across walls, and leaky roofs. The building was unequivocally condemned. Xiao Li told the others that mothers had filed complaints before, yet an architectural inspection firm had later declared the building perfectly safe. Hae Gang instantly suspected Taishan Construction, the kindergarten's contractor, was behind the cover-up. For the children's safety, until they came up with a proper solution, he arranged to take all the kids to an amusement park to keep them out of the school building temporarily. Hae Gang then called an emergency meeting and showed building representatives photos of the shoddy kindergarten work. The mothers present were outraged and insisted the truth be made public. Several representatives, however, feared plummeting housing prices and firmly opposed disclosure. The two sides argued fiercely. Xiao Li argued they must not stay silent just because some people objected. If internal channels failed, they should reach out to the media. Hae Gang warned her that media outlets were firmly controlled by Jung Yuan's allies. Any expose would likely get suppressed right away. Furious, Xiao Li retorted, if mainstream media was off limits, they would become their own media. Her words struck a chord with Hae Gang. One of the mothers in their group was a social media influencer with millions of followers. She always wore a mask on camera, so no one knew her real identity. But Hae Gang recognized her from her voice. He asked her to film an expose video, using her fanbase to spread the truth about Taishan Construction's shoddy workmanship. Given what was at stake for the children, the mother readily agreed. That same night, she brought Hae Gang and the others into the kindergarten. Using a humorous commentary style, she laid out every safety hazard on camera. Once posted, the video went viral, plunging Taishan Construction into a public opinion crisis. Government officials colluding with Jung Yuan worried this would jeopardize the New City project. They bombarded him with calls, demanding he fix the situation immediately. Jung Yuan seethed with rage, itching to have Hae Gang eliminated. Hae Gang had expected Jung Yuan to fly into a fury, yet he felt gratified to have dealt the enemy a heavy blow at last. His relief was short-lived. An anonymously signed accusatory post suddenly popped up on the residential complex forum. In an accompanying video, the housing complex superintendent came forward as a whistleblower, alleging that the 17.8 billion yuan maintenance fund accumulated over years by residents had been embezzled jointly by Chairman Hae Gang and Finance Section Chief Xia Ting. Hae Gang tried to locate the superintendent, only to find the man had vanished without a trace. As the accusatory video spread, residents turned suspicious of Hae Gang. The trust he had built up with such difficulty collapsed overnight. To make matters worse, police soon arrived to make an arrest. Hae Gang immediately told Xiao Li and Xia Ting to go into hiding. To protect everyone else, he offered no resistance. He held out his hands and let the police take him away. Residents of the community were seething with rage, cursing Hae Gang as a corrupt vermin. To save Hae Gang, Xia Ting and the three underlings advocated handing over the secret ledger, but Xiao Li made a calm analysis. Zhong Yuan's name never appeared anywhere in the ledger. All misappropriated funds were recorded as having been handled by former Chairman Su and the housing complex superintendent. Handing it over now would not bring Zhong Yuan down. It would instead clear him of suspicion. Zhong Yuan's real goal was to tear apart this fake family. Before being taken away, Hae Gang had told them to hold their ground. This was exactly the time to stand united, to prove that even though their family was fabricated, they had committed no embezzlement. Meanwhile, the mothers who had worked alongside Hae Gang to expose the shoddy kindergarten construction also began to doubt him. They fumed at having been fooled by him. Ms. Zhang, however, spoke up for Hae Gang. If Hae Gang had really stolen the 17.8 billion yuan fund, he would have fled abroad long ago. Instead of staying behind to fix everyone's problems, rather than jumping to conclusions, they ought to find where the money had gone. To uncover the truth, Ms. Zhang thought of the housing complex superintendent. At that moment, he was drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Recording that false accusation video framing Hae Gang for corruption had never been his choice. Zhong Yuan had forced him to do it. Zhong Yuan had threatened that if he disobeyed, he would vanish without a trace just like Chairman Su. Terrified for himself and his family, the superintendent packed his bags to run away overnight. Yet the second he stepped out the door, Ms. Zhang, who had been lying in wait, caught him red-handed. Desperate to get away, the superintendent shoved Ms. Zhang aside and jumped into a taxi. Unbeknownst to him, the driver was one of Hae Gang's men. He had walked straight into a trap. Still unaware the superintendent had been captured, Zhong Yuan went to the police station to taunt Hae Gang in person, calling him nothing more than a defeated foe. He jeered that Hae Gang should not dream of achieving justice by exposing the shoddy building work. Cutting corners was an unspoken industry norm, whether for luxury mansions or ordinary apartments. Director Gua, listening in from outside, wanted admission to East society. Yet even he was appalled by Zhong Yuan's arrogance. In his eyes, Zhong Yuan was acting so brazenly that he trampled upon the nation and the law. If he kept playing with fire, everyone connected to him would get burned. Unwilling to keep cleaning up Zhong Yuan's messes, Director Gua ordered Minister Sun to fully investigate the defective kindergarten project to gather leverage against Zhong Yuan. Since the police possessed no solid evidence of Hae Gang's corruption, he was released after 24 hours in custody. But upon returning to the community, he was surrounded by misinformed residents. They shouted for him to get out, throwing salt and eggs at him. At the critical moment, Xiao Li rushed over holding an umbrella, shielding Hae Gang from the attacks, making it clear she would stand with him through everything. Seeing Xiao Li getting dragged into the trouble too, Hae Gang publicly vowed to recover the 17.8 billion yuan fund. Anyone who harmed his family would pay the price. Later, his men took Hae Gang to the kindergarten, where the bound superintendent was being held. The superintendent dropped to his knees begging for mercy the moment he saw Hae Gang. Zhong Yuan had originally planned to send him overseas, and now that he had failed to leave, Zhong Yuan's people would be hunting for him. Going outside meant certain death. Hae Gang learned that Ms. Zhang had played a key part in apprehending the superintendent, and he was grateful she still trusted him. He stopped holding back and confessed that when he first moved into the community, he had indeed come for the maintenance fund, but shortly after becoming chairman, he had discovered the account had already been drained. Actions spoke louder than words for Ms. Zhang. She had witnessed how hard Hae Gang had worked for the community all this time, so she was willing to give him another chance to retrieve the 17.8 billion yuan fund and make amends for his original crooked intentions. Hae Gang gratefully shook Ms. Zhang's hand, promising he would not betray her trust. To celebrate Hae Gang's safe return, Xiao Li and the others prepared a lavish feast. Everyone sat together chatting and laughing, the atmosphere warm and heartfelt. This family assembled out of a scam had unwittingly become genuine. After dinner, Xiao Li finally handed the secret ledger to Hae Gang. Xia Ting was ready to face criminal liability, hoping Hae Gang would use the ledger to take down Zhong Yuan, so their years of forbearance would not be in vain. After reading the ledger, Hae Gang told the superintendent that only his name and Chairman Su's appeared on its pages. With Chairman Su dead, once the ledger went public, Zhong Yuan would shift all blame onto him and slip away scot-free. Panic-stricken, the superintendent frantically asked what he should do, and swore he would fully cooperate with whatever Hae Gang arranged. At the same time, Zhong Yuan was holding a meeting with these society members. The kindergarten construction scandal had blown up into a major public incident. Several senior officials who had long been manipulated by Zhong Yuan seized the chance to pressure him back, demanding they be given positions within the new city project. When Zhong Yuan refused, they warned him plainly, in their eyes, Zhong Yuan was merely a replaceable spare. No longer daring to act arrogantly, Jong-yuan could only promise to resolve the shoddy construction issue the next day. Unaware of how Jong-yuan planned to turn the tables, Hae Gang first went to the hospital to visit his adoptive father. The old man knew his time was running out, and this might well be their final meeting. This man who had never been good at showing affection told Hae Gang for the very first time that over the years, he had long regarded him as his own biological son. Tears streamed down Hae Gang's face the instant he heard those words. Eager to secure his adoptive father's release, Hae Gang handed over the evidence of the defective construction to Minister Sun. He told Minister Sun that if Taishan Construction collapsed over the shoddy work scandal, E-Society would suffer heavy damage as well. Then Director Gua and Minister Sun would no longer need to seek membership in E-Society. Instead, they could use the evidence to bring Jong-yuan down and climb the ranks in the process. Persuaded by the proposal, Minister Sun accepted the evidence and promised to arrange medical parole for Hae Gang's adoptive father once Jong-yuan fell. The next day, Jong-yuan called a community residents meeting and invited dozens of media outlets. Facing the cameras, he bowed an apology before shifting all blame onto subcontractors, trying to exonerate Taishan Construction. When the residents remained unconvinced, Jong-yuan quickly pledged to tear down and rebuild the kindergarten. He proposed bringing in a top-tier designer for an elite-level redesign. While construction proceeded, children would attend a premium nearby English kindergarten free of charge, with all tuition and transportation costs covered by Taishan Construction. Residents' attitudes soon softened. Some of those who had supported former Chairman Su even applauded on the spot, praising Jong-yuan for taking responsibility. Just as Jong-yuan thought the crisis had been contained, Hae Gang strode into the meeting room carrying a hammer. Before anyone could react, he struck the wall hard several times. As plaster crumbled away, everyone stared in shock. Beneath the polished outer wall lay nothing but construction waste. Not a single reinforcing steel bar, meant to provide structural support, could be found. Hae Gang and his men had already inspected the residential complex and discovered that steel reinforcement had been omitted at numerous required locations to cut corners. Before reporters and residents, Hae Gang exposed the truth. The problems were not confined to just one kindergarten. All 9,800 apartments across the entire complex potentially harbored severe safety hazards in every household. Jong-yuan had intended the press conference to calm public opinion, only for Hae Gang to expose an even bigger catastrophe live. He immediately phoned the newspaper publisher and ordered him to suppress all on-site footage and reports. But the publisher told him it was already too late. Taishan's garbage-filled walls rocketed to the top of trending searches. Content spread wildly across platforms and could not be contained. Pushed to the brink, Jong-yuan lost all rationality. To get revenge on Hae Gang, he broke into the hospital in person and pulled out the ventilator sustaining the adoptive father's life. By the time Hae Gang rushed to the hospital, it was already too late. His adoptive father died of respiratory failure. Having given everything yet still failing to save his father, Hae Gang crumpled under overwhelming grief and self-reproach, sinking to his knees beside the bed and weeping bitterly. Adding to the cruelty, on the day of the funeral, Jong-yuan even showed up to pay his respects. Ostensibly there to bid the old man farewell, he was actually warning Hae Gang to learn his lesson. If he kept opposing him, the next person to be taken away would be someone Hae Gang cherished even more. Watching Jong-yuan leave with insolent arrogance, Hae Gang clenched his fists tightly and roared. This time, he would make Jong-yuan pay with blood. After his adoptive father was killed, Hae Gang lost all sense of reason, bent solely on killing Jong-yuan for revenge. Xiaoli held him back tightly, warning that charging in now would only get him killed for nothing. What he truly needed to do was let out his grief first. Only after calming down could he confront Jong-yuan, find what the man feared losing the most, and strike him down with one fatal blow. Comforted by Xiaoli, Hae Gang finally crumpled to the ground and broke down in tears. Having pulled himself together, he held his adoptive father's funeral with everyone's help. Upon learning of the adoptive father's death, Director Gua and Minister Sun grew worried. Without the adoptive father as leverage, they could no longer control Hae Gang. Both Hae Gang and Jong-yuan were reckless men. Rather than antagonize both sides, they would side with the more powerful party for protection. Right after they spoke, Director Gua received a phone call from Jong-yuan. Believing Director Gua had done his part regarding the adoptive father incident, Jong-yuan granted him admission into the E-Society as a reward. Furthermore, to force the other 4 members to help quell public outcry over Taishan Construction's shoddy quality projects, Jong-yuan smashed several young saplings in front of them, threatening that he had already picked out their burial plots. Xiao Jin, tasked with tracking down the estate manager, soon found out the man was being held inside the kindergarten and prepared to move in for an arrest. Meanwhile, residents' discontent in the community kept mounting. Ms. Zhang took the lead, rallying everyone to stand firm against Taishan Construction. Jong-yuan went to see Ms. Zhang in person, offering her a high-end apartment in the new town as a bribe, hoping to buy her silence with benefits. But Ms. Zhang would not yield to temptation. She publicly denounced his crimes, embezzlement of maintenance funds and filling walls with rubbish. Even 10 apartments could never atone for his utter moral depravity. To stop its plummeting stock price, Jong-yuan held a press conference. He publicly apologized for Taishan Construction's defective projects, and dangled affordable housing as bait to win back public trust. The trick worked. Faced with tangible benefits, countless people scrambled to apply for the affordable units. The upcoming Newtown properties sold like hotcakes. People viewed securing an apartment as winning the lottery, and soon forgot all about the shoddy construction scandal. Seeing this, Hae Gang realized that public outcry and legal means alone could never bring Jong-yuan down. If so, he would fight fire with fire, and seize what Jong-yuan cherished most. Hae Gang had long anticipated Jong-yuan would go after the estate manager. Before Xiao Jin arrived, he had his men move the manager to safety. Xiao Jin showed up to an empty site. Back at headquarters, an enraged Jong-yuan slapped him repeatedly, warning him he would pay with his life if he botched another assignment. Hae Gang pressed the estate manager for answers about where Jong-yuan had hidden the embezzled money. The manager recalled that every cash withdrawal from the maintenance fund was ordered to be delivered to Tai Jae-yuan. Most of the stolen funds were likely hidden there. Hae Gang knew full well how obsessed Jong-yuan was with money. It meant more to him than his own life. They would take all that money away and drive Jong-yuan to total ruin. That night, Hae Gang used drones to scout Tai Jae-yuan. The compound was lined with infrared sensors and guarded by professional security personnel. A brute force break-in was nearly impossible. Since they could not get inside, Hae Gang came up with another plan: make the money come out on its own. The next day, group after group made calls to the District Government and Environmental Bureau, filing reports accusing Tai Jae-yuan of illegal waste dumping, unlawful slaughter, and gatherings involving controlled substances. Swamped by complaints, government authorities had no choice but to dispatch inspectors. Hae Gang and his crew intercepted the official vehicles on the road, posed as government inspectors, and sneaked into Tai Jae-yuan. At that moment, Jong-yuan was hosting a gathering for E-Society members. He introduced the newly admitted director Guo to the other four men, boasting that with police power as their shield, their path would only grow smoother. Just then, Hae Gang appeared before them. He held up photos he had taken in advance and told the society members, beneath each sapling named after a person in the yard might lie a corpse, including Taishan Construction's chief financial officer, a congressman who vanished 3 years ago, the newspaper conglomerate's chairman, and the former homeowners committee leader. Hae Gang dropped deliberate hints, which successfully aroused suspicion among several officials. Xiao Jin grew worried that they had already figured out money was buried underground. He asked Jong-yuan whether they should move the cash in advance. Jong-yuan, however, saw through Hae Gang's bait-and-trap ploy. Knowing Hae Gang was waiting for him to dig up the money on his own, he decided to turn the tables. He ordered Xiao Jin to rent multiple trucks, change their license plates, and transport the cash away overnight. That night, several trucks rolled out of Tai Jae-yuan one after another, heading off in different directions. Hae Gang and his men lying in ambush tailed them at once. The team made up of mothers and homeowners split into 2 groups to track the other vehicles, while Hae Gang and his associates followed the truck driven by Xiao Jin. When the truck stopped and Xiao Jin stepped away, they quickly pried open the cargo door. The second the door swung open, they realized they had walked right into a trap. There was no money inside at all. Instead, a large group of thugs armed with clubs jumped out. Hae Gang immediately ordered a retreat. Yet more assailants swarmed in from all sides and surrounded them completely. Everyone except 11E, who had gotten out late and hidden in the grass in time, was soon under attack. As their strength began to fade, 11E suddenly came charging over in a car to rescue them. The group scrambled aboard to escape, but at the very last moment, Xiao Jin caught up and stabbed 11E in the abdomen. Hae Gang hurriedly dragged 11E into the car and told him to hold on. Unexpectedly, 11E broke into a grin and pulled a book out from under his shirt. The blade had never actually wounded him. Hae Gang chided him for needlessly scaring everyone, yet he could not help laughing in spite of himself. Meanwhile, Xiao Li and Ms. Zhang kept watch outside Tai Jae-yuan, waiting for the real money transport vehicle to show up. Before long, Jong-yuan drove out in a van himself. The two tailed him closely, only to discover he was heading straight back to the residential compound. They were blocked when trying to enter the underground parking lot and ended up losing track of him. After regrouping, they tried to work out which apartment Jong-yuan would use to hide the funds. They ruled out SungHa-yuan's own home first. He could never explain the money if the place got searched. Xiaoting screened recently vacant units and properties with unusually low utility bills. She soon found one apartment with 0 water consumption recorded for the previous month. The owner was none other than the missing former chairman Su. The bespectacled sidekick cracked the lock. When they broke inside, mountains of cash greeted their eyes. Besides the 17.8 billion embezzled from their own community, funds siphoned from other residential compounds were also stashed there. Hae Gang resolved to recover only their community's 17.8 billion and return the rest to other affected neighborhoods. To reduce criminal liability for Xiaoting and the estate manager, Hae Gang came up with a plan. He wanted the two of them to make a public confession, stating that pangs of conscience over embezzling maintenance funds had driven them to return every cent of the stolen money. If Jong-yuan dared claim the money belonged to him, he would be admitting to corruption and forced to answer for Chairman Su's disappearance. Hae Gang was certain Jong-yuan would never dare make such a risky move. Once their plan was finalized, everyone paired up to take turns guarding the cash overnight. When Hae Gang and Xiao Li were on duty, freshly woken 11E stepped out and teased them for flirting on the job. The pair handed the watch over to 11E and went downstairs for a walk. Hae Gang asked Xiao Li what she planned to do once everything was over. He offered to sponsor her further studies and certification exams, for in his heart, they were already family. Though Xiaoli brushed him off for meddling, his words struck her deeply. Early the next morning, Hae Gang called all the residents to a meeting. Cardboard boxes holding the 17.8 billion yuan maintenance fund were carried out before the crowd. He announced that the embezzled funds had finally been recovered. Just as he was about to open the boxes for residents to see for themselves, he froze. The boxes that should have been stuffed with cash were filled only with stacks of flyers. The entire 17.8 billion had vanished overnight. Pandemonium broke out. Furious residents demanded an explanation from Hae Gang. Right then, a message popped up on his phone from 11E. It was 11E who had taken the money. After 11E vanished with the 17.8 billion yuan fund, Hae Gang and the others checked the surveillance footage, only to discover that his last destination was a meeting with Zhong Yuan. Everyone believed 11E had betrayed their makeshift family for money, burning with the urge to hunt him down and settle scores. Just as they seethed with rage, 11E's powered-off phone suddenly picked up a signal. Hae Gang quickly sensed something was wrong. If 11E had really fled with the money, he would never deliberately turn on his phone and expose his location. The sudden signal meant he was not running away, he was trying to send them a message. Hae Gang immediately suspected Zhong Yuan was behind everything, using 11E as bait to lure him into a trap. When Hae Gang prepared to go for the rescue, Xiaoli stopped him at once. It was clearly a trap, and walking in meant falling right into it. Hae Gang knew the danger, yet 11E was already family. He could not stand by and watch a family member get killed. Meanwhile, 11E, badly beaten, had been stuffed inside a paint bucket. That morning, Zhong Yuan had shown up with his men. He threatened that more than 30 hitmen were lying in ambush near Hae Gang's home. If 11E failed to deliver the 17.8 billion to the designated spot, everyone close to Hae Gang would be put to death. To protect the group, 11E had no choice but to hand over the money. But after getting the funds, Zhong Yuan had no intention of sparing him. Instead, he kept 11E as bait, planning to get rid of Hae Gang as well. 11E shouted in defiance, telling him to do whatever he wanted. He was nothing but a gambler, and Hae Gang would never come to save him. Right after his words, the warehouse door swung open. Hae Gang had actually come alone. Seeing Hae Gang, 11E felt both moved and guilty, apologizing for dragging him into this. Hae Gang simply closed the lid of the paint bucket again, telling 11E to stay hidden inside. Zhong Yuan ordered dozens of thugs to attack Hae Gang, then left together with Xiaojin. He locked the warehouse door and told Xiaojin to come back later to collect their bodies. Hae Gang fought at full strength on his own. Before long, his 3 sidekicks rushed over to back him up. 11E tumbled out of the bucket too. The 5 of them joined forces and beat down the mob of thugs, finally breaking out of the warehouse. After escaping danger, 11E thanked them for risking their lives for him. Even though their makeshift bond had begun as a fraud, he would strive to do better from then on. To take Zhong Yuan down completely, Hae Gang produced records of bribes paid to Minister Sun back when he ran a casino. Every entry clearly noted the time, location and exact amount of each payoff. He threatened Minister Sun to have the police dig at Tai Jae-yuan immediately. Otherwise, he would release the records and end Minister Sun's career. Trapped by the blackmail, Minister Sun had no choice but to comply. Police soon searched Tai Jae-yuan and unearthed a total of 15 corpses underground. The case was reported in the news, and Zhong Yuan was officially put on the wanted list. As a result, the Ministry of Land and Resources terminated its partnership on the New Town project. Taishan construction was barred from future projects. Cornered, Zhong Yuan resorted to desperate measures. He slipped away and found Qingbei, intentionally took a group photo with the child, and sent the picture to Hae Gang. He forced Hae Gang to come alone to the rooftop of an apartment building. When Hae Gang arrived, Zhong Yuan was waiting there with the 17.8 billion yuan fund. Zhong Yuan offered to give all the money back, begging Hae Gang to spare his life. When Hae Gang refused, Zhong Yuan flew into a rage. He called Hae Gang just as stubborn as his adoptive father. Then he pulled out a fruit knife and taunted Hae Gang, admitting that he had used this very knife to cut off his adoptive father's oxygen supply. He dared Hae Gang to kill him right then. Completely losing control, Hae Gang knocked Zhong Yuan to the ground and grabbed the knife, ready to avenge his adoptive father. Yet at the very moment he was about to strike, he recalled his adoptive father's final words, "Never act on impulse." Calming down, Hae Gang instantly saw through SungHa-Yuan's ploy. Zhong Yuan wanted to enrage him into committing murder so they would both go down. With that realization, Hae Gang let go of Zhong Yuan and turned away with the 17.8 billion yuan fund. Zhong Yuan picked up the fruit knife and tried to stab him from behind, only to be kicked hard to the ground by Hae Gang. Hae Gang brought the 17.8 billion yuan fund back to the property management office and handed it over to Ms. Zhang and building representatives for formal bank deposit. Ms. Zhang shook his hand emotionally, thanking him for recovering the money for all residents. Elsewhere, Director Gua showed Zhong Yuan the list of bodies found at Tai Jae-yuan. SungHa-Yuan's fate was now in his hands. To survive, Zhong Yuan had to hand over 5 billion yuan. Zhong Yuan agreed at once. If Director Gua helped him evade conviction and frame other officials for the murders, the 5 billion yuan sum would be paid in full. But Hae Gang would not let them continue colluding. On the day Jong-yuan was due at the police station for questioning, Hae Gang and the others showed up. They played the evidence publicly in the form of a rally. The first audio recording captured Jong-yuan confessing to murdering Hae Gang's adoptive father. The second video showed Jong-yuan inside the hospital, admitting in front of Director Gwa that he had colluded with several officials. To obtain this ironclad proof, Xiao Li had disguised herself as a nurse and sneaked into the ward to secretly install a camera, recording the entire conversation. Once the two pieces of evidence were made public, Jong-yuan had no chance of redemption. All the officials who had conspired with him were punished as well. After everything settled, accompanied by Xiao Li, Xia Ting and the estate manager turned themselves in at the police station, taking responsibility for falsifying accounts. This makeshift family, brought together by a scam, now had to part ways. Everyone packed their luggage to move out. Before leaving, they took another family photo. Unlike the first one, there was no acting this time. They had truly become people who relied on one another. 3 years later, Xia Ting successfully opened a dessert shop, with the estate manager as her business partner. She got together with Kingnan, and the two gave Kingbei a stable home. After 3 years of study, Hae Gang teamed up with Xiao Li, who had passed the bar exam, to open a law firm. He brought 11E and his 3 sidekicks back to start a new career together. The firm's first case was entrusted by Ms. Zhang, dealing with a 6 billion yuan claim against the property management company. Hae Gang and Xiao Li quickly found loopholes in the opposing parties' arguments based on legal provisions, and clearly informed the residents that they bore no obligation to pay the 6 billion yuan penalty. The crowd cheered. With Hae Gang around, they had their anchor again. For audit work, the law firm would stay in the residential compound for another month. After all that had happened, everyone was back where they first met. Only this time, they were no longer a fake family. They truly had one another. End of drama.